From simple beginnings in Illinois, the legendary fighter would become a legend synonymous with the Wild West. James Butler, also known as Wild Bill Hickok, was a folk hero of the American Old West, known for his work across the frontier as a drover, wagon master, soldier, spy, scout, lawman, a goon fighter, gambler, showman, and an actor. In this episode of Laughs from the Past, we'll attempt to discover if Wild Bill was truly a wild outlaw or a misunderstood peacekeeper, and learn of the raucous events that led to his eventual and mysterious demise. I'm Jake Smallcock, and this is Laughs from the Past.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Laughs from the Past, Season 8, Episode 5. Season 8 is all about the Wild West. We've had some fun tales, as you heard from Jake's marvelous intro. Talking about Wild Bill Hickok, real name James Butler. How you doing, Jake?
Doing well, James. I'm feeling attached to my Laughs from the Past roots. As you know, I watched Waco this weekend, so I'm feeling connected to our stories. And yeah, I mean this has all the key words. I mean, we got an early name change. I mean, the list of activities Wild Bill was apparently involved in sounds neat. So I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing good. Excited for this one. I saw this one on the producer Luke's list, and I actually had a book all about Wild Bill. Wild Bill, showing you my book. And I started reading it, but there's no way I was going to finish the whole book in time because I don't have time to read anymore. But it's by the same dude who wrote the book on, it's by Tom Clavin, who's writes really easy to read history books. So I got decently deep into it. I also have it in case I just want to pull up the index and see what he has to say real quick. But Wild Bill is an awesome story. And it's interesting because he's a gunslinger, but he's not, in my own understanding of him, wouldn't call him an outlaw in any way.
Okay. And I guess that's what we're attempting to discover, rereading the intro. Or a misunderstood peacekeeper. So, yeah, and I mean, like I just mentioned, James Butler to Wild Bill Hickok, that's a layup if you want to be a Wild West celebrity. So he's got that point down. And yeah, I haven't read Tom Glavin's book, but I've seen him pitch, so I'll respect his opinion.
Do you want I don't know if Luke has it in here why he changed his name. Luke, do you have it in here why he changed his name? If I say it now, will I step on that story? Well, I think he's muted. Well, anyway. Okay. Keep going, Jake. I'm going to start reading. We'll see where it goes. I know some stuff. I'm a big Wild Bill fan. If you watched Waco after we did the episode on Waco, now you're going to have to watch the first couple episodes of Deadwood to get your Wild Bill fix.
All right.
Deadwood it's one of the best shows. I'll probably rewatch it today if I'm.
You've always been a big Deadwood guy.
Yeah, it's regarded as one of the better shows on TV, but it was so expensive to make that they had to end it earlier than they wanted to. But it's really good. It's really, you have to pay attention because it's like the Old West, but they talk in like Shakespearean English. So it's really good. But every time I watch it, I pick up on a storyline or like a subplot that I'm like, oh, that's what that was. So I love it.
You're an Ian McShane guy.
Yeah, he's in Deadwood. He's in a show called Pillars of the Earth. What else has Ian McShane been in?
Let's see. I mean, I'll click on him.
I do think he's good. There's another
how old
show
do you
that
think Ian McShane is?
like 70 now.
77.
Yeah, he's got to be old.
See, he's Pirates of the Caribbean, John Wick, Kung Fu Panda. So yeah.
He was in Ray Donovan for a little bit. Pillars of the Earth, Kings. Yeah, Deadwood. Yeah, I don't know him from much. But he's good in Deadwood. Al Swearingen.
Boom.
All right, here we go. There are few people in America, or overseas for that matter, who do not recognize immediately the sobriquet of Wild Bill. I don't know if I said that word right. Sobriquet. And I should know right away that we got a lot of our info from Frederick J. Chivenstone from cowboysindians.com. It's all downtown.com and blackhillsvisitor.com. They have great articles and research on these stories, and we're leaning on them to help tell it. So thank you to those people. Okay. But in truth, James Butler Hickok, quiet, deliberate, and deadly, was anything but wild. Born into a large family in Homer, Illinois, on May 27, 1837, he came from pacifist activist stock. His father, William, had joined a Quaker-based anti-slavery group, and the family was actively involved in supporting abolition work. After his father died and his older brothers took on the job of managing the farmstead, James found himself asked to supplement the family diet by providing wild game. Even in his teens, he had developed a reputation as a crack shot. So yeah, I read a lot about this in the book. Like, first, his family has Connecticut ties. Actually, all the Hickocks moved from like somewhere in Scotland to Connecticut, but his family for some reason moved to Illinois, which super dangerous place to move at that point with all the fighting and all the slavery stuff. Like if Missouri is going to be a free state or slave state and all that. And his dad got right in the mix. So the Hickocks, he actually grew up on his farm was a stop on the Underground Railroad, Jake.
It's pretty cool.
So he would go to his like barn, and just sometimes there would be like 50 slaves in there that were running away. And they would pack them into the back of the carriage, and him and his dad would ride out. One time they got shot out. So like, but yeah, that's like, it was really involved. And then his dad died, so that stopped. But they said they probably helped bring at least 100 slaves to the north to free.
It's pretty cool. Cool. Yeah, that'd be a cool thing to have in your family's heritage, to be on the good side of history. And yeah, I mean, it seems like he got I don't know. I don't want to say one of the fun tasks of the time, because there's some pressure, but I mean, if you're providing the wild game, that just means you're hunting all day, right?
Yeah. Well, he took a liking to guns and shooting. Like
he's a crack shot.
He had older brothers, but they weren't as into it as he was.
Right.
So then, because he has that skill and his dad dies, now it's like, oh shit, now this is a life, like a necessity to survive. Sure. All right.
For nothing though, with hindsight and history, I mean, that's one of the things that's still like a hobby today. Like,
oh yeah,
hunting. You got to do a hobby back then. I mean, it was to feed a family, but
yeah, he was into it. In February 1867, writer Colonel George Ward Nichols recounts how Hickok drew a letter O on a signboard against a wall no bigger than a man's heart. And then from 50 yards away, without even sighting the pistol, Hickok fired 6 shots from his Colt revolver into the center. His skill as a marksman found a sense of purpose in his conviction. The one thing Hickok could not abide was bullies, and he was quick to defend those who he determined were being victimized. Which, that stems from his dad being an abolitionist and being part of the Underground Railroad. Like, he always was helping the under, whatever you want to call it, the under supported. He was lending support and stuff like that.
Yeah.
How do you
Yeah, pretty cool, man. I know you know, a lot of these words get kind of lost in the sports world that I tend to live in, but you know, a marksman is as cool as it gets within sports, whether it's you know, a quarterback that can throw a ball, you know, in between receivers, or a guy that's really good at 3-point shooting. Like, man, when Wild Bill Hickok came into town, you're like, damn, that's cool.
He was, yeah, it's a weird skill, like, to obtain. Like, he did practice it a lot, but also, like, he got really good at it. So anyway, by his 20s, he was ready to make his own way in the world, working first as a drover on the Michigan and Illinois Canal, and then heading westward in search of greater opportunities. He found one to his liking almost immediately in the town of Leavenworth, Kansas. As fate would have it, Hickok arrived on the frontier just as tensions were boiling over the slave versus free soil issue. With his imposing frame, he was really tall and skinny. Cool demeanor, and a reputation for marksmanship, he was soon asked to serve as a bodyguard for General James Henry Lane, the senator from Kansas, who was an ardent abolitionist and leader of the anti-slavery militia known as the Jayhawkers. It would not be long before tensions on the border would reach a climax as the entire nation plunged headlong into civil war. So, I mean, I know a little bit more about this. Like, there's a lot of legends about why he traveled west, why he left. And like, there's a lot of made up stories. And the real answer was that him and his brother went west to try and find a new place for his family to live so they can move off of the farm in Illinois and find a new spot. But also he wanted to go fucking explore. He was like young and hungry.
Had some wanderlust.
Yeah. This so his I'm reading this. Wikipedia is different from the book I read about how he changed his name to Bill, because his name is James Hickok. He had a brother who died when he was 2 years old, which was really common back then. And they would just rename their next kid after the kid that died. And I think his brother's name was like Irving or something like that. But his brother didn't want to be called his dead brother's name, you know, like he knew that he was named after him. So he just went by Bill, which was their dad's name, I believe. And when they went west, people just always heard him calling his brother Bill. And then they started calling him Bill too, which doesn't make any sense, but he liked it.
Yeah.
So he just went by Bill. He just wanted to go after his dad's name or so, whatever. Like, I was reading, I was like, that doesn't make any sense.
No.
Where was I? Hickok missed the initial phases of the conflict of the Civil War, having been mauled badly by a bear while guarding a hunting party. Yeah, there's not a lot of people thought that was part of the legend and the lore, but there's actually some documents that hold up that he actually fucking fought a bear, like the Revenant scene with Leo, and got mauled by a bear.
Yeah, that's interesting, because you know the modern day thing is like, hey man, if we go to war, I'm moving to Canada, and this back in the day, this was kind of that, right? Like, hey, I'd love to go to war. I got mauled by a bear, and people definitely lied about that. But yeah, we're gonna give Bill the benefit of the doubt for now.
So yeah, like they didn't say a lot of the resources on this were letters back to his parents, but he didn't want to make his parents worry. So you have to really like look at him. Like he was like, yeah, I'm not drinking, I'm not fighting. And then they were like, well, that's a letter to your mom. So I don't know how much that I was trying to read this up. The bear fight was crazy, man. Like a bear was in the middle of the path. So he got up to shoot it. And the bear just kind of ate the bullet and then still charged him. And then he wrestled it and eventually had to slit its throat while the bear had his arm in its mouth.
I haven't been there.
No. Crazy. So he missed the first stage of conflict in the Civil War. He found gainful employment working for Russell, Majors, and Waddell's fledgling Pony Express, far too large and mature to meet the requirements for riders. He instead worked for the company, caring for stock and maintaining the facilities at Rock Creek Station in nearby Nebraska. It was here that Hickok's legend was born. He was too big to be on the Pony Express. They used like 14-year-old small kids who just, the ponies could just fucking fly.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Sign me up.
Right? So this next section says 5 jobs in less than 5 years. What actually transpired at the Rock Creek Station remains a matter of some debate among aficionados of Western lore. David McCandless, a former sheriff who held the lease on the Pony Express station where Hickok had been employed, arrived on July 12, 1861. McCandless, a notorious bully, was there along with his supporters to collect a delinquent lease payment. The station manager did not have the money McCandless demanded, and hot words were exchanged. At some point, one of the antagonists referred to Hickok as Duck Bill, alluding to the fact that the young man's upper lip tended to push out when he was flustered. That's good. Heat of the moment when you're exchanging wits, that's not a bad insult.
I mean, it's you're right, but I mean, it's on from there. You don't call me Duck Bill.
Exactly. Whatever the reason, a violent argument ensued and shots were fired. When the smoke cleared, McCandless and 2 of his men lay dead. Hickok, station manager Horace Wellman, and employee J.W. Brink were brought to trial, but quickly acquitted of all charges. The result, of course, was that Hickok was no longer referred to as Duck Bill, but Wild Bill. So yeah, according to like the sources, he quick drew on him. Like he was just faster than them. They raised their weapon. He bam, 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 bam.
Yeah, I mean, could be a little bit of winners telling the story of history there, but it adds up.
Yeah, I think the shootout no one knows, but people know that dude McCandless came with guns to the spot where Wild Bill and the other people were just chilling. And he kept calling the other guy out and then trying to shoot him. And Wild Bill had enough and was like, hey, get out of here or you're going to have to deal with me. And they killed him. Soon after that, Hickok found employment as a teamster and a wagon master with the Union Army, a position that would put him back in touch with a young scout who had previously ridden for the Pony Express, William Frederick Cody. Hickok only kept this position until September of 1862, at which point he was discharged and took up a position as a scout, and some say spy, for James Lane, Jayhawkers. There, he met up again with young Bill Cody, now working as a scout for Lane's organization. Wild Bill Cody, or Bill Cody at this point, he was 11 years old when they first met, and Hickok was 20. But he saved him from some bullies on the wagon train, and they got along really well. Hickok was more restless than his friend, and by 1863, he had moved on again, this time taking a job with the Provost Marshal of Southwest Missouri, working as a detective. It was not an especially glamorous position. Most of his time was spent keeping drunken Union soldiers in line and checking hotel liquor licenses. This job, too, would prove a very temporary sojourn, and Hickok was soon back working as a scout for the Union Army in Springfield, Missouri. He remained in this position until June of 1865, but the war having ended, he found himself unemployed and at loose ends. This was likely a bad combination for Hickok, who had become a serious gambler. The immediate result of his predilection was a confrontation with an old friend named Davis Tutt.
King Tut, man. Yeah, and I mean we're seeing the millennial kind of crisis just 1,000 years earlier, going through a bunch of different jobs, finding his way, looking for the right town. And I think he's about to blossom.
Just restless.
Yeah, just not sure what it's all about, not sure where he's supposed to be. He knows he's got some skills, not sure where to apply them, and we're here.
Yeah. He has a lot of skills. I think he just Didn't like any of the jobs. He had vices. He liked gambling a lot.
Sure.
So Hickok had been a scout for the Union Army, and Tut was a Confederate Army veteran. Maybe it should be no surprise the friendship soured and ended in the first recorded one-on-one quick draw shootout in the United States. And it happened on Park Central Square in Springfield, Missouri on July 21st, 1865. Some say the relationship fell out over women. There's no question, however, that Hickok and Tut had an argument over a gambling debt. Tut grabbed Hickok's prized Waltham repeater gold pocket watch. He planned to keep it as collateral until Hickok could pay off the debt. Their feud simmered to a boiling point. Tut's friends told Hickok that Davis was planning on wearing the watch in the middle of town square the next day. He shouldn't come across that square unless dead men can walk, Hickok replied. Sure enough, Tut showed up at the town square around 10 a.m. Hickok's watch was dangling from his waist pocket. Wild Bill showed up, the two discussed their debt, but they failed to reach an agreement. Tut returned to the square later that day, showing off the watch again. Hickok returned too, around 6 p.m. A big crowd had already gathered in anticipation of the conflict. Hickok walked north on South Street and entered the square. Tut was standing 75 yards away near the old Greene County Courthouse. That building was located where Here's Luxury Living stands today. Cool. Dave, here I am, Hickok said. He cocked his pistol and holstered it in his hip. When Tut began to move toward Hickok, he said, "Don't come any closer, Dave." Historian and author Bill O'Neill told the Wild West History Association, Tut assumed a duelist stance, which was not out of character to anyone back then. Hickok drew his pistol and steadied it in his left hand. Tut shot and missed. Hickok fired a split second later and hit his target. The bullet entered Tut's body between the 5th and 7th rib. The ball went all the way through his torso, O'Neill said. He said, "Boys, I'm killed," and he stumbled backwards a few steps and fell right in front of the courthouse arches. It was quite a shot, considering Hickok used a cap and ball .36 caliber Navy Colt. He was lucky to hit the square, let alone the other person. I don't know if you ever shot a cap and ball .36 caliber Navy Colt. I have. I was lucky to hit anywhere near what I was was pointing at. Hickok hit him and it went through and through. That's it. That was some guy from today's time.
Yeah, couple things here, and something we haven't talked about in a while, and should be a reminder if you don't know. But like they're saying, I mean, the accuracy of guns back then was kind of pathetic. If you look back at some of the Civil War battles and things like that, that's why you had armies of guys lining up facing each other and shooting, because that was your best odds of hitting something. Okay, kind of impressive by Wild Bill that he either was so good at his craft that he had it figured out, or he lived kind of a lucky life, I guess. But it seems like there is a level of skill to it. And a couple things just heading back in time. The fact that we've got a 10 a.m. show and a 6 a.m. show between Wild Bill and Tut, I mean, that's just a good time. The whole town's talking about it all day. Are they going to do this again? When Tut just stands in the middle of town at 6 p.m. waiting for him with a crowd gathering. Like, that's a good time. And then, you just got some really good trash talk. I was going to give, Hickok gets credit for he shouldn't come across that square unless dead man can walk. Like, whoa, that's how you talk trash. And then Hickok follows it up with just a casual, "Dave, here I am."
Here I am.
And then yet again, I was thinking I wasn't gonna love Tut after this whole exchange, but I mean, you get hit with a bullet and you turn to your fellas and you say, "Boys, I'm killed." I mean, that's powerful stuff.
This is the first quick draw duel. So like usually, you would do your 10 paces or you would stand like, we did Lincoln's duel and Hamilton's duel, and you take your turns and you shoot at each other. And usually they would miss on purpose because showing up enough and standing there as someone aimed a gun at you was brave enough. It was like, let's not actually kill each other. Once it got to that point, sure, it happened. But there was no counting. There was no paces. It was just staring at each other's fingers and hands and hoping that, if someone pulled, you had to pull too, which is crazy. Lorenzo was the name of the brother that died, and then his other brother, not Irving.
It's a really cool name for the time.
Lorenzo. My thing with this, Jake, is so let me finish this paragraph, but then I'll get to it. It was quite a shot considering Hickok used, there was a coroner's inquest. Hickok was arrested and stood trial. He claimed self-defense, and the jury decided Hickok was justified in the shooting. Tutt had taken his watch, embarrassed him, and reached for his pistol first. I think only the third part is really he embarrassed him and taken the watch. I don't think that's grounds, but
I disagree.
The fact that he reached first.
I disagree. This is a court of law. This guy, we're talking about. I mean, feel how often you watch a court scene and you feel lost or they're using big words. I mean, this is how it should go down. He took my watch, he embarrassed me, and he tried to shoot me first. I'm sorry, Judge.
If you just say he tried to shoot me first, I think you're golden. I don't think you.
I like the story though.
All right,
you got to embellish a little bit.
So, public opinion in Springfield was such that Hickok understood that a change of scene was advisable. So I think he leaves. But this starts the legend of Wild Bill, right? Like this is written about in all of the little dime store novels and all that.
Yeah.
And it puts a target on his back because they're calling him the quickest draw in the West, And maybe fucking Tutt was just a drunk, stuttering idiot. Like how, you got to do the strength of schedule. You can't, because now you have the best people coming after Wild Bill, and all he did was shoot one guy, Who knows if Tutt was second best? So I think it was very damning that they did that to him.
A little bit. I mean, you're the first to ever do it, so you're gonna be remembered. We're still talking about him because he was the first. And I think, we might have some underlying stuff here because we got a Union and Confederate guy. So I mean, there's
they were
some
good,
trash
they were good
talk.
they were good friends, but yeah, in the papers, you mean?
In the papers, and I mean, it's again, let's go back to the trash talk and kind of the sporting world. Whether you're a Union guy that wants to knock Hickok off, you're like, yeah, he shot a Confederate. They those guys can't shoot worth a raccoon drinking molasses. And then if you're a Confederate guy, you're saying, oh, Tutt was the worst soldier we had. I could kill Wild Bill Hickok. So it really is double-edged.
Yeah, it's brutal. Now he's killed two guys, though. Following the Tutt affair, Hickok moved farther west, where his old friend Cody asked him his assistance guiding a tour for General William Sherman.
I've got a question.
Yeah.
When we look back in history, because you just said Wild Bill Hickok has now killed two men.
Mm-hmm.
And he's in the military and stuff too, I guess. I mean, did this weigh heavily on Bill? Like, was he having his low moments with his drinks? Like, I took two men's life, or how did that go back in the day?
I'm sure it's person to person. Obviously, if I read more into this book, I think that I'll get that answer.
Okay,
but I'm gonna say, see, it's difficult because the first one, I think it truly was self-defense. In this story, like the other, Wild Bill, in my opinion, doesn't come out cool, besides the fact that he was better because it was his buddy. His buddy beat him in gambling fair and square. His buddy won his watch fair and square and kind of won the right to mock Wild Bill. So, like, Wild Bill being like, the confrontation only exists because Wild Bill was so insulted that he was bad at gambling. And then Wild Bill knows, right, like, I'm going to force this dude to draw his pistol on me and I'm going to kill him. So, like, I don't think I would have given him the self-defense verdict here.
That's why you don't embarrass him, Jim.
Exactly.
Don't embarrass him.
Okay, so now he's working for General Sherman. His skills as a guide well established, Hickok was then employed for General Hancock's campaign against the Cheyenne. It was during this camp.
You can't have Hickok working together. That's illegal.
What's that?
Was it Hickok and Hancock? Is that what you just said?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you can't do that.
Yeah, against the Cheyenne.
No.
It was during this campaign that he made the acquaintance of Lieutenant Colonel George Armstrong Custer. Custer became very fond of Hickok, noting that the tall frontiersman was one of the most perfect types of physical manhood that I ever saw. That's hell of praise. And Custer was into being all dapper and looking like manly and shit. In his memoirs,
getting some, I don't know, getting some flirty vibes there. You can phrase that a little differently.
Oh, dude, I think Custer was, I think a lot of people could say that. Custer was, he was like, he was very much like putting on his own stage play at all times.
Okay.
Like he dressed the part, he made big speeches and all that, and he wanted to be like, I could see him being flirty with Hickok.
Another thing we've got going here, I mean, we're bumping into some names that you, again, the origins of this podcast were to kind of relive some history that you ignored in high school. I mean, General William Tecumseh Sherman. I mean, General Sherman and General Custer. I mean, these are names. These are big players.
Oh yeah. Buffalo Bill Cody.
Yeah.
I mean, Hickok was tied to all of them, and they all liked and respected him. You know what I mean? Like everyone that met him talked highly of him.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive, except for his buddy he murdered in the street.
Yeah, that guy. Well, he didn't get to talk anymore. So in his memoirs, Custer went on to say his skill in the use of the rifle and pistol was unerring, while his deportment was exactly the opposite of what might have been expected from a man of his surroundings. It was entirely free from all the bluster and bravado. He seldom spoke of himself unless requested to do so. His influence was unbounded. His word was law. He's a cool guy.
The only thing that's frustrating me right now is, like, I don't have a why he's so good with the rifle. Is it because he hunted so much as a youth? Is it, he cleaned his gun a certain way? That's the only part that's frustrating me right now.
I think he just did it from a young age and had that skill. And I don't know. Why was Tiger Woods so good at golf? Practiced a lot. And also something was in him that allowed him to do that, I guess. I don't know. But I think this is maybe so ignorant. I'm going to guess that, like, you had your gun and you knew which way it fired. Like, like, hey, go aim a little this. My gun spins this way. It's not like you can pick up any gun and just master it right away.
Yeah, maybe there's, maybe elements are more of a factor. Maybe if you had a 25 mile per hour wind, you had to play that a little bit. But yeah, I'm curious.
When the campaign had drawn to a close, Hickok made his way to Abilene, Kansas, where he served as the marshal in this notoriously tough cow town. Here, he made the acquaintance of the infamous gunfighter John Wesley Hardin, who idolized Hickok, although it is doubtful that the marshal even knew who Hardin was. While Hickok was able to make great strides in taming Abilene, a nasty encounter with saloon owner Phil Coe marked a turning point for the lawmen. When shots were fired during a street brawl, Hickok rushed to the scene and found Coe holding a pistol. Hickok demanded that the man put the gun down. Instead, Coe pointed it at the marshal and fired. He missed, but Hickok didn't. A single shot killing Coe instantly. Then, a sudden movement in the crowd spooked the marshal, who instinctively fired at a man moving toward him. Again, Hickok killed his man, but it was a terrible error. The dead man was Mike Williams, one of Hickok's deputies and a good friend who had been rushing to help. Ooh, tough story.
Here's kind of what I was referencing before with his headspace after killing someone, and I think this is a dark turn if the dark turn hadn't already happened.
Yep. It says Wild Bill was devastated. Within weeks, Hickok, who was haunted by the incident, was once again out of a job. Thus, in 1873, when his old friend Cody offered him a job back east, he took it. The job that Buffalo Bill had in mind for him was a starring role in his stage play on the Wild West called Scouts of the Plains. The drawback to the plan was discovered on stage in Buffalo, New York, when Hickok froze. In a note of supreme irony, the man who had coolly faced off an enraged bear, Confederate battalions, hostile Indians, angry mobs, and murderous pistoliers was undone by a debilitating case of stage fright. Showmanship was not in his forte. Hickok headed back west. I mean, that is a classic case. Like, thinking that who he is, he can be in an acting way. Like, he was a showman, but that was just his everyday life.
Right. This is, I say this in a lot of sports references today, but I guess I'm missing it more than normal. But, I always talk about Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant locked himself in a gymnasium from ages 4 to now. And people expect him to be this kind of social, funny, interactive guy. It's like, no, the dude has had limited normal social interaction up until this point in his life. And I mean, that's a case in point, Wild Bill Hickok.
It's also a great example that no one will know but you, is when you have someone who is genuinely funny and you're laughing with them and at them at the same time, and then you put a camera in front of them and you say, be yourself. They have no idea what that means. We have a buddy we try to put a camera in front of like that, and Wild Bill was probably like, what do you mean, showman?
Yeah, you do the sports reporter voice. We saw Tom Brady in the locker room today, and he looked really good. And it's like, no, just be like, yo, Brady looks good. And some people can't do that.
It's true. So anyway, he failed as an actor. That's a bummer for him. Henry M. Stanley of the Weekly Missouri Democrat reported Hickok to be an inveterate hater of Indians. An inveterate? I don't know that word. Hater of Indians.
Yeah.
Perhaps to enhance his reputation as a scout and Indian fighter. But it is difficult to separate fact from fiction, considering his recruitment of Native Americans to cross the nation in order to appear in his Wild West show. Witnesses confirmed that while working as a scout at Fort Harker, Kansas, on May 11, 1867, he was attacked by a large group of Indians, who fled after he shot and killed 2. In July, Hickok told a newspaper reporter that he had led several soldiers in pursuit of Indians who had killed 4 men near the fort on July 2nd. He reported returning with 5 prisoners after killing 10. Witnesses confirmed that the story was true to the extent the party had set out to find whoever had killed the 4 men, but the group returned to the fort without nary a dead Indian, never even seeing a live one. Also, Hickok's first real girlfriend that he thought he was going to marry was half Native American, and his mom forbid it, but he was like, yeah, where are you going to draw the line there? So, I mean, they were still at war, so I think, if Indians come kill your men, you're going to fight back, even if the Indians had, more moral ground to stand on, because the white man was taking their land. So, I mean, I think that that's the shit that just gets overblown. Like, this is a dude who helped slaves escape and was about to marry a half Native American girl. So I doubt he had any animosity besides they just killed one of my guys. I got to kill them now.
Sure. I'm hung up on something.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's 1873. He's just killed his buddy, Mike Williams.
Mm-hmm.
Cody, who we haven't heard from in a while. It's 73, and they were buddies when? In 60-something?
Well, when Buffalo Bill was 11 years old.
Right. So, I mean, we're talking early 60s, 62, 63. Yeah. So we're a decade later. Cody is in Buffalo, New York and he gets the message down to our guy saying, "Hey, do you want to be in a play?" I mean, that's just a weird keeping in touch for a decade. It would be hard to do that interaction like pre cell phones.
Well, I mean, letters existed, and like Hickok wrote letters all the time, and back home they would just take, depending like a week, 2 weeks, a month to get there. And while Wild Bill was really close with Buffalo Bill, like whenever he crossed that where Buffalo Bill's family was from, I forget where, but I was reading in the book, they would have lunches together. Wild Bill lived with his family for like a year, like flirted with his sister. They were like really close. So if his family is still in that area, send a letter to the family, find him, or just send a letter to him, figure out where he is. But like, letters were slow, but they existed.
Yeah, but with everything he was doing, keeping in touch for a decade. That's impressive.
Yeah. And I think if you're part of like the military in any way, letters are probably even easier because it's government stuff. But yeah, always odd. I mean, I was reading, what book was I reading? It's all about Lewis and Clark, Undaunted Courage by Ambrose. And it blew my mind that they said that George Washington and Julius Caesar had the same methods of communication. Nothing changed for thousands of years. It was write a letter, have someone carry it, try to get a pigeon. Yeah. And then once like trains, the Industrial Revolution, like trains, radios, all that shit like blew up, and Lincoln was like the first to kind of have that. But isn't that insane? They're like ancient Rome and George Washington, same exact methods of communication.
It's crazy.
So we have Wild Bill comes to an end. And there's so much in between, but obviously we can't do his entire life story. But despite his reputation as a soldier, a scout, and a lawman, these callings were no longer open to Hickok. For, as he found on a visit to a specialist in Kansas City, his eyesight was failing. Heading farther west, he looked to find his fortune in and around the newly opened gold fields in the Dakota Territory. There, he worked with his friend Charlie Utter, spending his free evenings playing cards in a Deadwood saloon. It was there, in Nuttall and Mann's Saloon, sometimes referred to as Saloon Number 10, on August 2nd, 1876, that a young thug named Jack McCall found him with his back uncharacteristically to the room. McCall drew his pistol and shot Hickok in the back of the head, the bullet emerging through his right cheek. There was always been some debate over why McCall shot Hickok. While some have alluded to an old blood feud intimating that McCall was out to avenge the death of his brother at Hickok's hands, McCall never had a brother, only 3 sisters, and there is no indication that any of them ever left Kentucky. Another unsubstantiated tale has McCall seeking notoriety by gunning Hickok down. Not much is known of Jack McCall, who murdered Western legend Wild Bill Hickok in the Number 10 Saloon. According to research, McCall was born around 1852 in Jefferson County, Kentucky. He was reported to have been in the Republican River near the Kansas-Nebraska border in 1869. He was employed as a buffalo hunter and was thought to be a cattle rustler, though that has not been documented. He likely bounced around in the cattle and railroad towns of Kansas, Nebraska, and Colorado during the early 1870s. Although no photographs of Jack McCall have been authenticated, newspapers described him as having thick chestnut hair, a somewhat pointy head, a small sandy mustache, and a small mouth, snub nose, and cross-eyed. Holy smokes, that's a brutal description.
Yeah.
Do we have a drawing? Because I can't even combine all those. It's just...
Yeah, those words kind of do nothing for me, except that it goes on to say double chin and So at the end it says may have had a small goatee, double chin, cross-eyed. Like, okay, I've got that. No idea, snub nose, small mouth. I kind of get sandy mustache, not really. Pointy head, kind of not really. I think chestnut hair is just brown hair, right?
Yeah, thick brown hair.
If you if you scroll down, it says there's no authenticated picture, but I did see one source had a picture of him that they claimed was him, so I don't know how accurate it is. But
You have
on
the
this next
picture in
page,
here.
on the next page, yeah,
McCall's
maybe one more page
trial.
after.
If that picture is Jack McCall, then the descriptions that those reporters should be in jail.
Okay.
Because that looks just like a normal dude.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think this is the people that write the history books weren't Jack McCall, so I think everything got just like a slightly mean twist to it.
Yeah. All right, where was I? Yeah, then he says he may have a small goatee and he was described as having a florid complexion, double chin. He apparently used aliases during this period, two of which were Curly Jack and Bill Sutherland. Those are wild.
Also kind of hilarious that there's a picture of a guy from the 1870s who might be Jack McCall, also might not.
Might not, could just be anyone.
Could be another guy who was named Bill Sutherland that people found a picture of, and they're like, well, he goes by this.
Curly Jack is a nickname. Bill Sutherland is an alias. Like if your name is Jack McCall and you go by Curly Jack, that's not really an alias. You're still your same
Jack.
name. Bill Sutherland, that's a guy in hiding. He was sighted in Wyoming in 1875 and probably gravitated toward the gold rush in the Black Hills. It is likely that McCall was already in Deadwood when Hickok arrived. The arrival of Hickok in wide open early Deadwood was viewed with a mix of curiosity and distrust by those already there. What was the famous Wild Bill doing in Deadwood? Local bosses who made serious money on illegal and immoral activities guessed that local businessmen would ask Hickok to take on the position of marshal, or at least a hired enforcer on their behalf. It is speculated that the criminal element was fearful due to his reputation and may have decided to encourage somebody outside their group to take care of Hickok for them. Yeah. There was no law in Deadwood. It wasn't U.S. What's that?
All adds up.
Yeah. There was no law because it wasn't U.S. territory. It was Indian territory, so the U.S. didn't have rights to law it, and that's why people went there to open saloons and all that. And that makes sense that the criminals would be like, oh, he's coming here to be the law. He's going to be marshal. So then they're going to try and take care of him. And then he has a target on. He had a target on his back anywhere this dude went. Just reputation alone.
Mm-hmm.
So Wild Bill was playing cards in Nuttall and Mann's number 10 saloon on August 1st when one of the players dropped out and bystander Jack McCall took his place. McCall lost big and at the end of the evening was broke. Hickok gave him money to buy supper and a little advice about gambling and then returned to his camp. That's a story I know, that Hickok lent him some money and kind of, it says advice, but kind of like dickheaded, like patronizing him. And that made McCall mad. Don't lend me money after taking all my money away from me. That would be kind of...
Yeah, you don't... Oh, yeah, you don't give someone advice on gambling after you just take all their money.
Yeah, unless the advice is don't gamble. That's fair.
Yeah.
On August 2nd, Wild Bill entered saloon number 10, had a drink, and talked with bartender Harry Young. A poker game was in progress with the saloon's owner, Carl Mann, sitting in. Mann, Charles Rich, and Captain Massey invited Wild Bill to join them. He hesitated. The only available seat had its back to the door, and Hickok never sat with his back to the door. He asked Rich to change seats with him, but Rich refused. Hickok reluctantly took the empty seat and joined the game. A fatal mistake. I believe that because if you are Wild Bill, you have a target on you. Also, I don't have a target on me. I hate sitting with my back to the door at restaurants.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good rule to live by. A little unnecessary right now, but back then, absolutely.
Yeah.
Non-negotiable.
Hickok was losing by the time Jack McCall slipped into the saloon. McCall moved down the bar and stopped a few steps behind Hickok, as if to look at the hand Bill had been dealt. Not noticing him, Wild Bill said to Massey, "The old duffer. He broke me on the hand." The last words he was ever to speak. The old duffer. He broke me on the hand. There was a loud bang, and McCall shouted, "Damn you, take that." Hickok's head jerked forward, was motionless for a moment, and then he fell backwards to the floor. The bullet had passed through Wild Bill's skull and exited his right cheek before lodging into Massey's wrist. Hickok's cards were an ace of spades, an ace of clubs, an eight of spades, an eight of clubs, and the jack of diamonds spilled from his hands. This became known as Dead Man's Hand. What is it, a full house? 2 eights, 2 aces, and a jack?
Yeah.
McCall.
Let's see. Two black aces, 2 black spades, and the jack of diamonds. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Dead Man's Hand. McCall backed out the door, waved his .45 pistol, and shouted, "Come on, you sons of bitches!" All but Call Man left the room. McCall ran out the back door and tried to make his escape on a horse tethered there, but the saddle had been loosened and McCall fell. Several men grabbed him and placed him under guard for the night. By the following morning, a miners' court had been convened in McDaniel's Theater. This trial had no legal standing, as Deadwood and the Black Hills were not part of the Dakota Territory, or, for that matter, a recognized jurisdiction in the United States, but a part of the Great Sioux Reservation. This fact may have also held a part in the judgment of the jury. Despite overwhelming evidence of the premeditated murder, McCall was found not guilty after telling his judges that Hickok had killed his brother in Kansas. It was suggested to McCall that he might live a lot longer if he left Deadwood immediately, which he did. It's kind of fair, because they all moved there because there's no law. So you're put in a tough position when they try to do an impromptu court and rule by law. And everyone's like, hey, but the whole point of this place is we don't want law.
I don't get that, though.
I think the bigger thing here is you've got, like Jimmy's saying, you've got people that don't want to deal with the law. And if you don't want to deal with the law, there's a reason for that. So when Hickok plays the "he killed my brother" card, there's no way to prove that shit. So it's almost the benefit of the doubt, because if you're the kind of person that wants to live in a lawless land, you're the kind of person that would want to kill someone that killed your brother.
But if I was Hickok's buddy in that situation, then I would just shoot McCall and be like, no laws here, and McCall just killed my best friend.
But yeah, I don't think they were all killers. I think, you still took a special person to just kill a guy in cold blood. But I just think they were like, we don't want to set a precedent of a court and a judge and all this. And I think when McCall said, he killed my brother, they were almost searching for a reason to be like, okay, fine, get out of here. Or they knew that there would be a jury trial somewhere else.
I think what Luke was saying, which it seems like the mistake here, and I guess it's Hickok not having closer friends with him in Deadwood, is if someone had killed McCall, they wouldn't have gotten in trouble because he had just killed the other guy. Yeah. So people would have been fine with that. So that's kind of the only miss here.
Yeah. Just didn't want to kill him. So anyway, he runs away and then they track him down and there's another trial. McCall went to Wyoming, boasting in stage stops and saloons along the way that he killed Wild Bill. Colonel May followed Jack from Deadwood and reported him to the authorities. A warrant was issued, and McCall was arrested on August 29th and was taken to Yankton, Dakota Territory, for trial and indicted for murder on October 18th by Judge Granville Bennett. Yankton, they do this storyline in Deadwood, and they talk about Yankton and stuff. Just great name, in my opinion. I love it. Yankton. I think it's the way they say it with the accents or the way they talk about it in Deadwood, too. I just was like, damn, Yankton. Sounds badass.
You have no other idea why you might be brainwashed into liking that name?
I just saw that at the Yankees, but I think I always like the hard KT.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a big hard K fan.
Yeah. You're a big Yank fan, too.
Yeah, but I don't see Yankees in Yankton. It's just
Your girlfriend's name is KT.
Oh, that's weird. Didn't realize that one. McCall tried to turn state's evidence after he and his cellmate attempted to escape, but were foiled. He alleged that John Varnes, a Deadwood gambler, had paid him to murder Wild Bill. When Varnes could not be found, McCall implicated Tim Brady in the plot. Brady, like Varnes, had disappeared from Deadwood and could not be found. Ooh, I didn't know that. That's interesting. Maybe I did know that, but also Tim Brady, kind of funny.
Yeah, I don't know. McCall just naming names from this unruled territory seems a little desperate. And if it is true, I mean, cool, but I don't know. This is a man on death row looking for any way to get out of this.
Anyway. And he's also not smart. No witnesses were called for the defense, and the verdict came in at 10:15 on December 6th, guilty as charged in the indictment. Wild Bill's brother, Lorenzo Butler Hickok, so that's the guy that also went by Bill, was allowed to talk to McCall before returning home to Troy Grove, Illinois. McCall told Lorenzo that he had been bribed to kill Wild Bill and showed no remorse. Sentencing was held on January 3rd, 1877. McCall told the judge that he had been drunk at the time of the murder and didn't remember any of it. He asked for a new trial and then claimed that his name really wasn't Jack McCall and he changed it when he left home as a boy. Unswayed, the judge then passed sentence instructing him that on the first day of March 1877, he would be hanged by the neck until dead. His defense counsel asked to have the death sentence commuted, but was denied. McCall read the Bible, corresponded with autograph seekers, and was visited by priests while awaiting execution. McCall wrote to the Yankton Press on February 21st, offering to write an article for their paper, which he would hand to them on the morning of his execution. That article might have explained once and for all his motive in killing Wild Bill or implicated others, but he destroyed the letter that night before his execution, perhaps because the day before his execution, he was given a letter that would be sent to Yankton Marshall. Oh. Okay. This is another letter. From, who's this from?
This is the letter that McCall received while he was in jail.
Okay. Dear Sir, I was in the morning papers, a piece about the sentence of the murderer of Wild Bill, Jack McCall. There was a young man by the name of John McCall left here about 6 years ago, who has not been heard from for the last 3 years. He has a father, mother, and 3 sisters. This is a woman writing this letter, I just found out. 3 sisters living here in Louisville, who are very uneasy about him since they heard about the murder of Wild Bill. If you can send us any information about him, we would be very thankful. This John McCall is about 25 years old, has light brown hair, inclined to curl, and one-eyed crossed. I could not say about his height, as he was not grown when he left here. Please write as soon as convenient, as we are anxious to hear from you. Very respectfully, Mary A. McCall. Dude, so his sister kind of like ratted him out. Like, oh yeah, Curly Jack. His real name's John. Got a cross eye? Yeah, that's my brother.
Cross-eye stuff. Cross-eye stuff.
So he got that and realized like his sister knew about him and was like, fuck it.
Yeah.
This sucks. Bummer. So he's hanged. Public execution at 10:15 a.m. in Yankton. He was buried in the southwest corner of the Catholic cemetery there. In 1881, when the cemetery was moved, his body was exhumed. It was discovered that he had been buried with the noose still around his neck. Ooh. Weird. I don't know what to think about that. Is that normal?
I kept that in just to see Jimmy's reaction with the darkness.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm oddly unfazed by it.
Okay.
Seems easier than chopping the rope down. I don't know. Just untie it.
Yeah, I don't know. The killing of Wild Bill and the capture of Jack McCall is reenacted every summer evening on Deadwood's historic Main Street. Immediately after, the actor playing McCall is tried in a play, The Trial of Jack McCall. Hickok's chest hair is displayed at Saloon Number 10, a popular establishment billed as the only museum in the world with a bar. We may never know why Jack McCall murdered James Butler Hickok in cold blood. Here's our little conclusion. Our story ends not where McCall was buried, the noose still around his neck, but at the final resting place of James Butler, Wild Bill Hickok, in Mount Moriah Cemetery in Deadwood, South Dakota. For all of his reputation as a lawman and his notoriety, courtesy of the newspapers and dime novels of the day, and his own exaggerated claims that he had killed hundreds. The truth behind the legend is that in his role as a peace officer, Hickok probably killed no more than 9 men, including his hapless deputy in Abilene. Hickok remains a popular figure in frontier history. Many historic sites and monuments commemorate his life, and he has been depicted numerous times in literature, film, and television. He is chiefly portrayed as a protagonist, although historical accounts of his actions are far more controversial, and most of his career was exaggerated by both himself and various mythmakers. The plaque below the bronze bust marking his grave skirts the discrepancy. J.B. Hickok died August 2nd, 1876 by pistol shot, aged 39 years. Custer was lonely without him. Oh my God. That's what it says.
I mean, again, what I was kind of saying before. Yeah, I mean, something smells a little fruity here.
Something smells fishy, and I don't know what. Yeah, the Custer line is really weird.
I mean, is that on his tombstone? Where is that?
Yeah.
I mean, come on. What did he call him earlier? Like a tall, handsome glass of water?
Something like that. It's like the finest specimen of man I've ever known.
One of the most perfect types of physical manhood that I ever saw. I mean, I got no problem with it. But again, think about, we're telling the story of Wild Bill Hickok. I think there was one rumor about him maybe fighting over girls, but there's no proof of that.
Oh, he had girlfriends. He always left them because, well, I don't know.
Because he was in love with General Custer.
I think Custer was definitely in love with him.
Pretty nice.
Custer was a little flamboyant, dude. I want to show you. So what are your thoughts on Wild Bill? Like, are you into his story and him? Or do you think he was good, bad? What are your overall thoughts?
I mean, I think he's all right. I think we definitely, kind of what it was saying at the end, we definitely had an amplification of who Wild Bill is, because that's what people wanted. But yeah, I mean, I like the fact that he's, a tall, strapping man who was a great shot, and I don't know, had some flaws to him. He seems like a kind of a good hero of the time period, but not necessarily a good hero.
Okay. I love him like Custer does.
Yeah.
No, I some of the stories are tough. Like just shooting his deputy because he was spooked. That sucks.
Right.
But I do think that the legend is as good as the lore. Or the life is as good as the legend. You know what I'm trying to say? Like I do think like his tales add up that they're like, wow, this dude was crazy awesome.
Yeah,
but
he
fought a bear.
I guess that's, and you're right. Like that part is cool. And the stuff that seems pretty real, it seems like you can confirm it and put a thumb stamp on it, which we haven't been able to with a lot of the other guys. But again, I'm almost taking points back because I think part of his appeal at the time that's carried over to now is like they said that it was exaggerated that he's killed hundreds of people. And it's like, no, that wasn't who he was.
I think though, like if at the time you could be like, I think that a lot of the population understood those dime store novels were works of fiction, like based on truth. I don't think the general populace actually thought, he killed 100 men. I think maybe little kids did.
People are dumb.
I get that. People are dumb.
All right, I have some producer questions like I have at the end.
Sure.
First one, of the people we've talked about so far, where does he rank, or what are your current rankings of the Wild West characters that we've had? So I think we've done episodes about Wild Bill, Sam Bass, Billy the Kid, but also if you guys like the people from the Alamo or the train.
Well, the train is not about an individual. It's about a story, and I really like that story. The Alamo, I mean, cool story, but they're all dumb. Like I didn't come out respecting any of those people. I came out the opposite.
Okay, then rank the 3 like outlaw figures that we've talked about. Bass, Billy the Kid, Hickok.
Oh, Hickok's easy number 1 because he wasn't an outlaw. In my opinion, he's still a lawman. Like there was never a wanted poster with Wild Bill's face on it. He worked for the government. He may have killed some people accidentally, but he was never robbing, stealing. Like he wasn't an outlaw. Sam Bass, I still say if he doesn't successfully get like 60 grand in his first train robbery, no one knows his name at all. And then Billy the Kid was cool, but also a punk kid. So he was slippery as fuck. Remember that? He escaped like 7 times. So I got Bass last, then Billy the Kid, and then Wild Bill is number 1. Wyatt Earp is the biggest competition for Wild Bill, probably.
I'd probably switch places with Billy the Kid and Sam Bass. I mean, I feel like you're deducting too many points from Sam Bass for pulling the big one. Like that's what we reward in sports. If you win the Super Bowl, if you do that, you get the credit. And he's got one of the biggest notches in his belt, one of the biggest notches that we've seen.
He's like Flacco. He's like Flacco of the football world. Like, yeah, dude, your one run was amazing. Not who you are though, but amazing.
Flacco's got his ring. And you know what? I don't know about Billy the Kid, and I mean I'm just happy. For me, it hurts me that Custer and Hickok couldn't spend their time how they wanted to.
It's so weird. Well, who put that on his gravestone? That's weird. Can I show you, Jake, a scene from Deadwood and how he's portrayed in Deadwood?
Hey, just before we put this guy underground, we got the name, okay. We got the date, how he died, good. Okay, we got his age. Yeah, I don't know. At the end, maybe just put Custer was lonely without him.
Dude, that's really weird. Custer was lonely without him.
No, we're not gonna do that. But okay.
Yeah.
Do you think Custer secretly snuck back there and wrote that himself?
Imagine if Custer was upset, like Custer saw that and was like, "Who the fuck wrote that? I'm not lonely."
Would you miss the funeral of the love of your life? I don't know.
I don't think Custer was there. Maybe, I don't know.
All right, what else? What would be your guys' dying hands if you were playing poker and you got killed?
I don't know.
Be an awful hand. It'd be no face cards. It would be all of my chips on the table. Like it would be the mortgage to my house. It would be my shoes would be on the table. Everything would be all in, and I would have the worst poker hand imaginable. That would be my death hand.
All ones, all aces, and then king.
Be a really good hand.
Yeah, but I would never get the victory from it because I died.
Cheating. It'd be 5 aces. Just died a cheater.
I said 1 king.
Okay.
Let's see if
I like 5 aces. That's good, Luke.
Check out this scene from Deadwood. See if this is how you had Wild Bill, because he's awesome. He's got the long hair.
What kind of hand is your friend with a gun?
I don't feel qualified to say.
Yeah, I guess I'd done my duty and I was glad enough to help.
Stick around. See if she lives.
Nah, I was glad enough to done my duty, and that little one be in my prayers.
Get down off your horse.
Listen to me. I'm an innocent man. It was them Indians, goddammit!
Too much ransacking, and too many goods left behind. Someone was after money.
God damn it, if I had something to do with what happened, why'd I come to this camp, huh?
Maybe when it got thick out there, you ran. Maybe the others was going to ground, but you had to have pussy. Get to a Pharaoh layout. I felt that way sometimes after a kill.
Get down off your horse, or face the consequences.
Got him. So how you had his voice and demeanor? Because that's like how I have it because of the show.
Yeah, I mean that's tough. Having seen that character, then yes. And I mean from that, I'm just my head jumped to an early '90s remake where that's Tom Selleck would play him, which I think is part of what you're depicting, kind of the man's man.
Yeah. That's how he talks, like no inflection. So go watch Deadwood. That's what this whole episode was about.
Yeah.
Wild Bill.
Next week we got our first two-parter.
Ooh, exciting. I didn't know the Tombstone thing. And I actually like it more Custer not aware that was put on there and showing up and being like, who the fuck wrote that?
Yeah. You got a Custer obsessed Tombstone writer? I don't know.
It's like when people write like fan fiction. It's like just one crazy loon was like, him and Custer will love us. Put this on the Tombstone. Custer shows up. What?
I mean, I've got Custer, back of the funeral procession. He's got the hood over his head. It's almost one of those like people know it's him, but you also don't acknowledge it.
Yeah. I don't know. Custer wasn't he announced his presence. He was all dapper and shit all the time.
And that's why this is so beautiful. This was the one time he didn't.
Oh, I like that. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you guys very much for listening. We'll be back next week with a two-parter, says producer Luke. See you then.